Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry if you're not sober or just freshly back from a relapse in New Jersey like Corey. We talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense.
I got people.
My name is Sean, and I am your host.
People texting me being like, "Dude, I thought you were doing well. What happened?"
Wow. My name is Sean, and I am your host. That lovely voice you hear is my co-star Corey.
Yeah, Corey, almost a decade Mitchner.
Along with Greg tonight. Please remember to listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That was a terrible intro, guys. Our videos will still be posted each week on YouTube and Facebook. But as always, please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Let's get right into it, Corey. How are you? How is Jersey? Welcome back. Good to see you, my friend.
What do you care, dude?
I always care. The day I stop insulting you is the day I stop caring.
All right, well, that's whatever. Not what I signed up for, but okay. Everything's fine, dude. Everything's fine. Jersey was fine. I didn't eat a cheesesteak up there. Do you believe that? I ate a cheesesteak when I got home. I brought a few home with me.
Yeah, we hold on. Yeah, time out.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Pause
go
right
ahead.
there. Let's get this out in the open.
Yep, let's do it.
Corey, you brought cheesesteaks on the airplane flight with you.
It's not the first time he's done it.
So you were the smelly guy on the airplane.
He is the smelly guy on the airplane. And he says he packs them well. He packs them in his carry-on. That shit still
smells. Yeah. It still gets out.
Okay, first off, have you ever smelled a cheesesteak? It smells delicious.
Not in the confines of no windows.
It's fine.
Well, here's the thing is like the cheesesteak smell does smell delicious in the connotation of I've got this beautiful delicious cheesesteak in front of me. But when you're smelling that kind of smell wafting on an airplane, you're like, who didn't
in a confined space?
Yeah, which one of these assholes didn't clean between their legs before they got on here?
They have no idea. They're sitting there like, damn, I'm hungry. Why am I hungry all of a sudden? That's what they're thinking.
We already know that Corey doesn't wash his feet every day, so
yikes.
You know what else, dude? Didn't we have a whole thing about like one of you fucking ratchet people like taking your shoes off on planes and shit? You're worried about cheesesteaks?
That would be our fourth co-star who's not here.
Okay. Well,
who's been arrested for taking his shoes off in Italy on a plane?
Yeah.
They don't like that, dude.
He's been detained in Turkey for illegal foot smelling. Yeah. He tried to say, he tried to say like, oh, I always buy new socks when I do it. I'm like, wait,
bullshit.
That doesn't, even if so, your foot has been inside the shoe at least from the time you left your house to the time you boarded the plane.
It's got some funk on it, brother.
Yeah.
You know? Let's just face it.
Come on.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, I had
back to you, Corey.
The cheesesteaks were my payment for being picked up from the airport by one of my friends. Apparently, you can't just like do anything altruistically anymore. It's
a good currency. That's a good currency.
Yeah, I mean it's an expensive ride from the airport, to be honest. Cheesesteaks are not cheap these days. But that was good. I don't know, what else did I do? I went to the Celebration of Life, and that was.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about, and on a serious note, talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'll just say this. There's not a whole lot to say, but I will mention that obviously it was emotional.
Well, remind the listeners what, because they might not remember or know.
All right, Sean, I will. My buddy Slappy McGee, real name Lauren, he was my bass player, best friend since first grade. You know, we only we never really lost contact, but we drifted apart a little bit when I got sober. But I mean, we were buddies, and so yeah, he passed away back in March. So we finally got a Celebration of Life going, and
passed of a drug overdose, right?
No, it was definitely due to addiction. It was not actually a drug overdose. But I'm not going to get into particulars of that. But it was another score for addiction. But So I get there and I knew his urn would be there, and it's actually a very nice urn. It's got a bass guitar on it and stuff, and real cool. The hardest part about that for me was like getting there and seeing his bass. Oddly enough, like his dad had his bass guitar out on the stand, and I just like it like dawned on me in the moment, like, oh yeah, it's done. You know what I mean? Like that's not happening anymore.
Not going to get played again.
It's not going to get played again, really. Not by him, obviously, but it's exactly the way he left it. You know, he changed out. I remember he changed out the knobs on it to be like complete. Just they stick out like a sore thumb. It's funny. But whatever. Other than that, other than the sad emotional part, the rest of the time was like good food and literally just circled up with a bunch of old friends, just talking stories and shit like that. So that was actually very enjoyable. So it was a good time. And then the next day I went to Atlantic City and lost $100 at the casino. So
should have had our good friend Carmine with you, who whether it just be luck or some form of rare autism, seems to do really well in his first 3 to 7 minutes inside of a casino. So,
dude,
I've seen it happen twice. It's ridiculous.
On the slots too. Like
on the slots. Amateur hour, dude. I don't get it, but
yeah.
Respect.
And literally that like 10 minutes, like he's good. He just won $300. Time to leave. Crazy. Well, I lost $100, but dude, I'm so not a gambler. Because I took out $200. I was willing to lose $200, and by the time I lost $40, I was like, I'm saving the other 100. This is dumb. This is dumb.
Well, Sean McDonald wasn't a gambler until we got him to the mean streets of Las Vegas, and then he liked that roulette table quite a bit.
I did like it. I also haven't gambled since. That's not true. Actually, we went on our cruise. And I tried to do some roulette on the cruise, and it wasn't the same. And same thing. I lost like $40, and I was like, "This sucks. I don't feel it." But that was fun in Las Vegas.
Sean was having fun with the leather jacket.
I can see why people get hooked on it, but no, I haven't done it since that. That was fun.
Yeah, good trip.
That was good stuff. And then I got the escort tried to pick me up.
Yep,
the tall black escort.
That'd have been. You know, that's at least you get something for your money at that point instead of just giving it to
I turned her down, Corey. I turned her down. I'm a married man, Corey.
Yeah, I would have too.
Janine likes roulette too. She said she spent 8 hours at the Bellagio and lost her ass. That's a quote. Lost her ass.
It'll do it.
That's good. Greg, how are you doing up in the Midwest, buddy?
I'm wonderful, man. It's good to see you gentlemen on this fine evening. I am getting ready. I'm busy with work, getting ready to move this weekend. And of course, we cannot go without mentioning America's birthday coming up. One of the best holidays of the year. Can't wait to shove some dogs in my mouth. And maybe some other things. Who knows? You know, things might get a little weird. It's the 4th of July. We're going to have fun with it. So,
dude, I'm throwing tea in the St. Lucie. That's what I'm doing to celebrate.
As long as you don't throw tea at Lucy, you'll be all right.
That's a good rule.
You have a history.
That's a deep cut right there. Deep cut.
Better act right.
Deep cut.
So yeah, man, I'm jazzed up. It's going to be a good week.
Very good. Good stuff.
Hey, congrats, by the way, Greg. Congrats.
Thank you, Corey.
Oh, that's right. He wasn't
publicly.
I appreciate that.
I found out.
Lauren appreciates it too.
Yeah, we gotta. We need you guys to come visit.
We would love to come visit. We would love to.
There's some vetting to be done, and it's not the vetting of your fiance; it's the vetting of you. I want to make sure you're good for her.
Yeah, I probably am not, but or I should say she's too good for me, but we make a good pair, I think. Sean will actually get to meet her next weekend. So
that's right.
Are you fucking serious, Sean? All right, we'll take it offline. Yeah. No, you're done. You're done.
You got invited too.
You're done. You're done. We're done. I'm done. Hey, by the way, I'm having a little get together for Independence Day. Unless you're fucking busy with like your other friends or something.
You got invited to the wedding too.
Just saying. Sorry. Anyway, go on, Greg.
No, that was it. That was it.
Yeah, that's a good place to stop.
Bricked up.
I'm excited, Greg. I am excited to meet her. It would thrill and delight me to meet your fiance. Corey, we will miss you. You were invited though, so I don't know what you want me to
instead
say.
of you being at our table, we have a not so mild mannered Russian to contend with. So thanks for that, Corey. Thanks.
See, Corey,
dude, we bookmark this because we're going offline with this. I'm gonna. All right, let's go. We're doing a podcast. Sorry.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So tonight, boys and girls, we are doing our monthly deep dive, and we are going into the Karen Reed trial, the Karen Reed trial that went first to a mistrial and then a second trial, and they just finished the case. We're gonna do a little deep dive on it. We're gonna just give some details of it, uncover some things, and it was a fascinating case. My wife was very, very into it. By proxy, I was a little into it. I know Greg was into it. Corey wasn't into it, nor did he do any research. So he's just going to be a helpful observer.
I'm going to say a lot, Sean. I'm going to probably dominate
some negative commentary in the end as well. And let's get right into it. Greg's going to set the table and kind of go right into it. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, and I'm going to do my best for the interest of time and constraints we have as a podcast to kind of breeze through. I did all this stuff fascinates me, right? Anything to do with criminal trials, because it's what I studied in school, and I'm just generally into it. But I think in the interest of time, we got to kind of breeze over some stuff. So if I'm moving too quick, please feel free to stop me, gentlemen. But I think to start, we're just going to go over, break down, the facts of the case itself, right? So John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer. They lived in Canton, Massachusetts, and his girlfriend of 2 years, Karen Reed, I guess they were kind of on again, off again. Certainly at the end, things were a little tumultuous. But on January 29th, 2022, they went out with friends of theirs to a bar called The Waterfall. Shortly after midnight, they arrived there to meet up with a group of friends that were there. And I'm sorry, this is January 28th, 2022, was the night of. And then according to the prosecutors at the trial, Reed, as well as O'Keefe, consumed several alcoholic beverages. Some accounts say quite a bit of booze was consumed, as the three of us all know. I guess that's kind of subjective, because some of us can put it down way more than others, but I guess potential alcoholism is not on trial here. So, so at which point, when they were all getting ready to leave shortly after midnight, the bar was getting ready to close up. Reed drove her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, to the home of Boston police officer Brian Albert. This is the scene of the crime at this home. And this is where everybody from the bar was meeting up for a little after party. Around 1 a.m., court documents later revealed that in the weeks before and even the hours leading up to, text messages between Reed and her boyfriend O'Keefe, as well as voicemails, showed a strained relationship. Around 1 a.m., there are voicemails that pop up on John O'Keefe's phone, a multitude of which where she's calling him a pervert, a fucking loser, telling him to go fuck himself. She hates him. These are several different voicemails that are left. In between 4 and 5 a.m. At approximately 4:23, and this is all in the midst of a blizzard, essentially, going on outside. O'Keefe's niece called Jennifer McCabe, who is Brian Albert's sister-in-law and a friend of O'Keefe. And she said that Karen Reed was distraught because O'Keefe had not come home and was not answering his phone. John O'Keefe had adopted his niece and nephew. They were living in his home. Karen Reed had gone back to his home after supposedly dropping him off in the driveway of this house and never entering. According to McCabe, she heard Karen Reed screaming over the phone, "John didn't come home. We had a fight." Around 5 a.m., Reed called another woman whose husband was friends with O'Keefe. Prosecutors alleged that Reed said, while they searched, "What if he's dead? What if a plow hit him? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything." So this Jennifer McCabe goes to John O'Keefe's house. They pick up Karen Reed and this third person, and they're out looking for O'Keefe on the route between the two houses, to see if he walked home or something like that. Prosecutors said that Reed had mentioned to the women that she did have a crack in her taillight and wondered if she could have hit O'Keefe. At 5:07 a.m., a surveillance camera at O'Keefe's house shows Reed's SUV coming extremely close to O'Keefe's SUV in the driveway. So as she's leaving to go out to look for him, there appears to be a bump of some kind, which could have cracked the taillight, and that could have been the reason for it. Prosecutors say no taillight pieces were found in the driveway. Reed's defense argues the vehicle did strike the SUV, breaking the taillight and providing an explanation for the damage to the SUV. Around 6 a.m., they get to over near Brian Albert's home, where Karen Reed sees John lying in the snow right outside in the yard, kind of in between the yard and the next door neighbor's yard. She, at this point, becomes hysterical, inconsolable, and keeps repeating over and over that I hit him. This is according to first responders, emergency responders to the scene. The defense argued that one of the first responding officers from the Canton police gave false and deceptive testimony to the grand jury that would later indict Reed. So there's already, right from the onset of this, kind of conflicting views. You've got all of the primary witnesses involved have all been drinking for a good portion of the night into the wee hours of the morning. The following morning, prosecutors and defense attorneys agree that at some point in the morning, O'Keefe was killed, and someone, Jennifer McCabe's phone, had Googled at some point during that morning how long to die in the cold. The sides disagree on what time the search was made. The prosecutors say the search happened at 6:23 and 6:24 after the body was found. The defense says, and a federal forensic expert that they actually had testify said that the search was made at 2:27 a.m. So how did he die, right? That's the big question of all of this, right? Police say they found a broken cocktail glass and pieces of a taillight at the scene of the crime. A forensic toxicologist estimated that Karen Reed's blood alcohol level would have been around 0.13 to 0.29 around 12:45 a.m., more obviously than the legal limit. An autopsy was completed 2 days later on John O'Keefe. Prosecutors said the medical examiner ruled the cause of death was blunt impact injuries to the head and then hypothermia. They say the medical examiner did not find any obvious signs of an altercation or fight. So 2 days after this, Karen Reed is arrested for the first time. She's charged with manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a motor vehicle collision causing death, right? And this is when the trial starts to kick off. Several months later in June, they upgraded the charges. The grand jury returned charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol, and leaving the scene of a personal injury and death. So there's a lot of key players in this case, right? So before we kind of get started on the trial itself, to look at some of these key players involved. Obviously, we've got the victim, John O'Keefe. He was a 46-year-old. Like I said, he was a Boston police officer. He had been on the force for 15 plus years. He worked with the sex offender unit, as well as being assigned to stations in the downtown and Dorchester areas. He when he adopted his niece and nephew after his sister's death and became legal guardian of them, he took on like a more administrative role with the police department. As I said earlier, John and Karen had been dating for 2 years when he died. They didn't live together, but she spent most nights at O'Keefe's Canton home where he lived with the niece and nephew. The teens provided firsthand accounts to investigators of the couple's allegedly deteriorating relationship, but they weren't the only ones. We have the defendant, Karen Reed. Before she has worked in finance, and at one point served as an adjunct finance instructor at Bentley University in Walton, Massachusetts. As she tells it, they dated, the two dated in their 20s for a little while and then reconnected on Facebook over a decade later. By all accounts, she was kind of welcomed into the O'Keefe family. She developed a really close relationship with his niece and nephew. Over time, the two of them had started to become critical of one another. John O'Keefe especially critical of Karen for her childcare decisions, straining the relationships, jealousy, infidelity, all the stuff that generally ruins relationships.
Was it? Hold on, real quick. Was it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if proven was the right word. It was alleged that she was unfaithful to him, or both, or they were both unfaithful to each other.
It was alleged that they were both unfaithful to each other. It was proven at trial that some stuff had gone on, but they didn't really fully elaborate on a lot of the stuff.
Okay.
But yeah,
didn't she have some kind of relation, maybe the night of the drinking, with one of the other men in the home? Possibly was that? Did I hear that right?
I think there might have been
or maybe
some
he had
flirtation
something.
or discussion at the bar.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
She kissed. That's right. Janine just put it. She did. That's why I thought my wife said she kissed another cop at the house that night. But they tried.
He never went into the house that night.
Oh, so maybe they tried to. I think they tried to play it off though as like a friendly, like hello goodbye kiss kind of thing, like. So, anyways, good.
Karen told investigators that she left O'Keefe at the Albert residence after fighting with him in the car on the way over there, over care of the children. She drove back to O'Keefe's home and woke up the next morning in a panic. She used O'Keefe's niece's phone to call Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, who was the other person that was involved in the searching. And the two women drove with Reed to the Albert residence at 34 Fairview Road, where they came upon the body. Brian Albert he's a retired Boston police officer and lifelong Canton resident. He was the owner of the home where the body was found. He was the one throwing the after party. Reed's defense says the evidence suggests Albert orchestrated a cover-up, framing Karen Reed after O'Keefe was beaten up inside the Albert residence, attacked by the family dog, and then left to die on the lawn. So that's
what I had. Yeah, that's
entire
the defense,
crux of their case, right? Is that
then there was the maybe you have this already. There was the Google search, the disputed Google search that happened. Like you said, had a long to die in the cold and stuff, and they pointed to like the inappropriate text messages about Reed as evidence of the bias and the flawed investigation, and that the cover up was possibly O'Keefe wasn't on board with whatever was going on, like he was going to out somebody. I think potentially that's what the theory was, anyways, from the defense.
Yep. So Albert and his wife Nicole were all at the Waterfall Bar and Grill that night as well. They invited everybody to their house when the bar closed around midnight. The Alberts said that they did not know that Karen Reed, and they did not really know her and had only met O'Keefe a handful of times before, but they were all welcome just the same. The Alberts said they learned of O'Keefe's death the next morning from Jennifer McCabe, who is Brian Albert's sister-in-law. Karen Reed's defense claims early morning phone calls between Brian Albert and his friend Brian Higgins suggest something was amiss long before O'Keefe's body was found. Or if you've been following this trial, the series of butt dials that were occurring on the early morning.
Oh, that's what that was. I never really understood what that was about.
Yeah. So that's what it was blamed on, and I'm sure we'll kind of get to that a little bit.
They claimed that they didn't talk, that it was a mistaken.
Correct. It was a series of butt dials between
like a bunch of them,
three to
right?
four people. Yeah, all occurring right around the same time.
Huh.
Which would have been in between 1 and 2 a.m., I believe.
That's sketchy.
Yep. They supposedly learned of the death the following morning. Karen Reed's defense claims early morning. Oh, I'm sorry. Members of the Canton Police Department were the first law enforcement officers to respond. They interviewed witnesses and documented the crime scene before the Massachusetts State Police troopers arrived and took over the investigation. By then, Karen Reed's defense claims that Brian Albert had already started orchestrating a cover-up. Real estate records included in the defense filing claim Albert sold the home 3 months after the incident and also got rid of the family dog.
I remember hearing that from Catherine, and that was like some of the most damning conspiratorial evidence of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did they ever give reason why?
No. They said I forget if what the reason was for the dog needing to be rehomed. But I don't think that they ever went on record stating as to why because I don't know if it got brought up in trial, or if it did, it was like, an objection and
right.
all that.
Yeah, that's sketchy too.
Brian Albert's wife, Nicole Albert, again, she said that she didn't know Karen Reed, but she invited her and her boyfriend over to the house. She claims that neither of them ever showed up. She claims also that everyone left the Albert home around 1 a.m. At the same time that this 230-pound, 6-foot-plus man is supposedly dying. Not supposedly, factually, is dying in the snow directly outside in the front lawn. Everybody from the house party's piling out, and nobody seems to notice this man. She said that she learned of O'Keefe's death the next morning again when her sister came into the bedroom and informed her and her husband. The defense claims cell phone data suggests that Nicole and her sister, Jennifer McCabe, called each other within minutes of discovering O'Keefe's body before calling 911. Jennifer McCabe, she is the sister of the previously mentioned Nicole Albert, and she is really the person that the prosecution kind of like built their whole case. Not their whole case. I shouldn't say that, but like she was a star witness for the prosecution. Right. This is a big one. She testified she's known John O'Keefe through her daughter, who was a friend of O'Keefe's niece, and she came to know Karen Reed through John O'Keefe. Her and her husband Matthew said they arrived at the Waterfall Grill around 9 p.m. After attending a high school basketball game. They were among those who went from the bar to the after party. Jennifer McCabe invited O'Keefe and Reed to the after party, texting them the address and where to park. McCabe and her husband said they saw Reeves' car arrive at the Albert residence and then leave. She said she did not see Karen Reed or John O'Keefe exit the car or enter the house. McCabe said that she and her husband left the Albert residence around 1:30 a.m. and gave rides home to two of their friends, Brian Albert Jr. However, Reed's defense claims an analysis of McCabe's cell phone suggests she left closer to 1:47 a.m. and passed O'Keefe's home on her way home. Around 4:53 a.m., she received a call from Karen Reed. Reed and McCabe drove to the Albert home with Reed's friend Kerry Roberts, where they arrived and found his body. After discovering the body, McCabe said she and Reed prayed the Our Father together inside Karen Reed's car. She says that Karen Reed asked her to Google something to the effect of how long do you have to be outside to die from hypothermia. Karen Reed's defense, however, refutes that claim, and the cell phone data suggests that McCabe's cell phone, that search occurred around 2:27 in the morning. And again,
that was a big piece of,
conflicting cell phone experts are saying two different things,
which is fascinating, because you got to think that with all the technology today, they can pinpoint exactly when you search something. I refuse to believe that there could be that much,
and there's two experts, right? The two cell phone experts. One of them says that when you open the search window, that the search window stays at that time, right? So if I open Safari, or if I open Chrome or whatever on my phone and I search something, right? Or I just open the window and I don't search anything, but the window is open. Let's say the window is open at 2:00 in the morning. If I go into that same window at 6 a.m. and type a search into there, it will register at the same time as the window was opened.
I think that's, I don't know, because I
correct. It's wishy-washy,
I feel like I've seen my own Google search history, and it, like, I can, like, when I'm looking at it, I can see the timestamps and be like, oh yeah, I searched this golf course last night while I was on the couch, and I searched, like it timestamps it, but maybe, I mean, who knows? But yeah, that's sketchy.
It is sketchy. Reed's defense claims that McCabe tried to delete the Google search calls and texts with Brian Albert, which may point to a cover-up. They did prove that she was going in there and deleting searches and text messages and stuff like that out of her phone. They grilled her a little bit on it. I don't think she went all the way with answering some of the stuff, but they did grill her a little bit on it during the trial. The timing of the Google search is a key point of the contention in this case. The Commonwealth claims Karen Reed's cell phone expert misinterpreted the data by saying that there's no way that, if she typed it in and searched it at 6 a.m. or 2 a.m., then that's when the search was, not when the window was open.
Just for reference purposes, I'm literally looking at my Google history right now on my computer, and it timestamps it like exactly. It would be the opposite of opening the search window, and it's literally timestamping everything that I searched this evening, like literally up until like I logged into Zoom. It says launch meeting at 8:57 p.m. And then at 9:02 p.m. post attendee Zoom. At 9:16 Google Docs. 9:16 or 9:17 Karen Reed podcast, which was also one of my Google Docs. So I don't know. I mean, but I'm calling BS on that one.
Yep. Also in the home at the time, Jennifer McCabe's daughter, the brother of Brian Albert, Chris Albert, Julie Albert, and see all these people, they all have like some kind of little relation to this case, whether it just be by proxy, they were at a party and a dude's dying outside, or whatever the case may be. One of the biggest players in the case, and the guy that really came off and really gives credence to, is this a cover-up or is this not a cover-up, is Brian Higgins. So this guy he spent his career as a firefighter, an EMT, an Iraq war veteran, and most notably, and at the time of the murder, he was with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF. They have an office in Canton. And that's where he was stationed. He was at the Waterfall Bar that night and in the Albert home for the after party on the night in question. Telling investigators he left around 1:30 a.m. to complete administrative paperwork at the Canton Police Department. Higgins later testified that he left at 12:30 for the station to move vehicles for the oncoming storm. Canton Police Department security footage shows Higgins at the station on the phone around 1:30 a.m. Reed's defense argues the video suggests Higgins was already orchestrating the cover-up. Higgins denied the claim on the witness stand, saying he saw Reed and O'Keefe at the Waterfall. He's actually on camera at the bar, all over the camera, talking to Karen Reed, and yes, trying to kiss her. I don't know if it was like a romantic kiss, a hello kiss, if how good of friends they are. There's more to it than that for sure. But he was there at the bar. He was actually him and John O'Keefe were like play boxing in the bar. That's seen on camera as well. 2 weeks before John O'Keefe's death, Higgins said Reed unexpectedly kissed him on the lips while Higgins was at O'Keefe's house to watch a football game. Higgins and Reed had begun exchanging text messages expressing a mutual liking for each other, while Karen Reed invited Higgins over to her house at least once. He admitted to the kiss and acknowledged sending romantic texts in the ensuing weeks. Higgins testified. You're right. Higgins testified he considered John O'Keefe a friend and regretted the flirtation, but admitted he was attracted to the defendant and wanted to find out if they were near or at the end of their relationship. It's not clear if Higgins interacted with Reed when the two were both at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. Reed's defense said Higgins initially told investigators he did not speak to anyone the morning after he left the party, but the federal probe of the Reed case suggested otherwise. Brian Albert called Higgins around 2 a.m., and Higgins called him back, but the two did not speak. Both men said the calls were butt dials they placed from their respective beds, as we had said earlier. Higgins also said he ignored a call from former Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz that morning and later found out about John O'Keefe's death via Brian Albert. A lot of interesting stuff about Brian Higgins, including the fact that once the charges were filed, once he was established as a primary witness in this case, and investigators were telling him, we need your phone, we're going to subpoena your phone, don't do anything with it, don't do anything with this stuff over here because we need to ask you about it, go through it, whatever. He then admits on the stand that first he says he lost his phone, then he says he threw it away, then he says he destroyed the SIM card, then he said he broke the phone in half and tossed it in a dumpster on a military base.
And why is that important? Because it can't be retrieved?
Oh, well, yeah. So the phone, as far as I know, is
like the military base part. Is there any significance to that?
Yeah.
Or
So as far as I know, like local police officers, and I don't even know about state police officers, can go on to a federal military base to retrieve, because that falls under the umbrella of federal jurisdiction.
Military police. They could, but they would have to get special permission, and the military very much might not let them do it. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. So very, very fishy stuff for a guy that's just trying to hide the fact maybe that he has maybe a couple incriminating text messages that say he was trying to flirt with, which they have that all already. They have all the text messaging.
Right. So why destroy it? Why get rid of it?
Why destroy it? Exactly.
Yeah.
Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on the case, former Massachusetts state police trooper. He has since been fired from his position. He lost his job over the handling of this case, chiefly because of vulgar texts he sent to friends disparaging Reed and prejudging her guilt just hours into the investigation. But he is expected to return to the stand for the retrial, which already happened, as either the prosecution or defense witness. Proctor and his partner arrived at the Albert home the morning of January 29th, a few hours after the Canton police. They took over the investigation because homicide cases are typically the jurisdiction of the state police, and moreover, Brian Albert's brother, Kevin, was a Canton police officer. So Brian Albert is a police officer in Boston, or retired police officer. Kevin is a Canton police officer. This is very important to note, too. And also, you know, a little bit of a side note, but something that always stuck out to me in this case is if it is very strange to me that Brian Albert, who is the owner of the home where a murder took place, there's a bunch of police officers on his front lawn. They've just picked up a dead guy from his front lawn, and he never once comes out of his house for like 18 hours, does not leave his front door. That to me is kind of suspect. And when he was when he was asked about it on the stand, he said, well, I was just trying to let those guys do their job or whatever. But it's like, we all know the way that the military fraternity works, the police fraternity works, you know, like those guys are tight, man. Those guys rely on each other. They're out there risking their lives with one another, you know. To think that all that would happen at your front door and you don't at least go outside to talk to somebody,
no way.
Is very, very strange to me. Could just be one of those weird things, but in my book, I don't think so. Reed's defense says that conflicts of interest existed and extended far beyond Kevin Albert just being a police officer, to include relationships among lead investigator Proctor, the McCabe's, the Alberts, which created a debilitating bias against Reed in the investigation. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts calls the relationships tenuous at best, saying Proctor is a few people removed from any direct contact with Brian Albert or the McCabe's. But these people all knew each other. They maybe weren't best friends by any means, but they all knew of each other and knew each other through a couple other people, right? Reed's defense points to Facebook photos to support their conflict of interest claims. One photo is described of showing Chris Albert and Chris's son, Colin Albert, with Proctor's sister and mother at a social gathering with other children and adults. Another photo at a wedding purportedly shows young Colin Albert and Proctor in a photo with Proctor's sister, the bride. Proctor interviewed Chris and Julie Albert as part of his investigation. On the witness stand, he acknowledged his relationship with the Alberts, characterizing them as acquaintances he knew through his sister. He claimed his familiarity with the Alberts had no impact on the investigation. A Proctor family lawyer laid out the degrees of separation in the wedding photo, basically saying that, you know, just because these people are acquaintances doesn't mean they know each other.
Which I mean, that's actually a pretty decent argument, because Canton's not that big of, you know what I mean? And like you said, the police and the DA, they're all pretty, like, they're all,
it's a small town.
They're pretty tight knit, you know?
Yeah. The big thing with this guy, especially during the first trial, is they let the guy's group chat leak, and he was saying some pretty nasty stuff about the defendant. Both calling her. First off, like, some of the guys in the his group chat are asking him if he went through her phone to see nudes at all. Does, and then other things, he's calling her just every, terrible name in the book and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah. You don't let the group chat slip, dude.
No, dude, you can't do that.
You can't let that leak.
I hope I never end up in court again.
You're screwed. You're toast,
I'm
Missioner.
so toast.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of fishy stuff with old Officer Proctor, or former Officer Proctor, I should say. So,
by the way, I looked up Michael Proctor. and he is not related to John Proctor of the Salem witch trials.
Oh,
Just little useless information there. I was really hoping they were.
I appreciate that deep dive for sure.
Yeah, not related.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's other persons of interest in this. The former Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz was he resigned shortly before this murder. He's the one that called Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, after O'Keefe's body was found. Why the chief of police is calling a guy in the federal a federal organization, I don't know. 1 week after the incident, this, and so again, this is 7 days after this guy's dead body was found. He's apparently just driving past the Albert home where he supposedly found red plastic consistent with Karen Reed's taillight just laying out in the street.
Now, was her taillight actually broken?
So funny you should ask, right? Because this is the whole other thing, right? Is that this crime scene is an absolute mess, right?
Right.
First they bring in the local guys. The local guys are putting evidence in. I forget off the top of my head what it was. It's like some takeout or gas station.
Yeah, it was like it was like a
bags.
takeout food bag. Yeah,
They didn't even have evidence bags.
right.
Like I understand small town policing and whatnot. You got to put it in a Wawa bag. You know what I'm saying? Like
Wawa bags are fine for evidence, Greg.
Right,
very clean, very sterile.
Don't hold up in a court of law. So again, you're not doing yourselves any favors as police officers, right? Especially in a trial where all signs are pointing to, is this a cover up? Is this some kind of big conspiracy? Is this the fraternity of the police closing in around their own and trying to protect their own and point the finger elsewhere? And then you've got shoddy police work on top of it, right? Now, knowing what I know about crime scenes and everything like that, it does sound like this crime scene was a mess as far as, I mean, it was the middle of a blizzard. The guy dies outside in the middle of a blizzard, That's tough, right? That's really tough. But this dude, first off, has scratches all up and down his arm as if he's been attacked by an animal or some kind of strange blade. It almost, if you look at it, it almost looks like somebody attacked him with a fork, because there are 4 separate scratching marks, right? And they are consistent with what could very well be dog bites, dog scratches, that kind of stuff. So there is differing accounts of what was uncovered at the scene and when it was uncovered at the scene, as far as the tail light is concerned. However, there was a police officer that got put on the stand, and he was the one that impounded Karen Reed's Lexus from the driveway when she got arrested and the vehicle was being impounded. And he is on record and at the trial stating that the tail light was cracked. It was not shattered. It was not broken. It was not missing chunks of pieces. It was cracked. So if that's the case, 3 days later, this vehicle is sitting in her driveway and it's cracked, but it's not broken and shattered into pieces. So then that begs the question of, how do all these pieces of taillight then wind up being found at the scene 3, 4, 7, 10 days later?
Hey, real quick, I have a special guest star. She is a professional evaluator on stuff like this. My lovely wife, she's going to come sit and give
oh, here we go.
Quick minutes of her professional. She's literally had nothing to do on her days off except follow this trial for the last few months. So here.
Yes.
Hello.
Sit.
Come save me from talking.
In charge.
Well, you didn't tell us she was pregnant.
No.
Oh yeah.
What do I do?
You just talk. You don't. She said, "What do I do?" You just talk.
Hi.
Janine's there too. You just can't.
Our
see
special legal counsel, Mrs.
Yes.
McDonald.
So just give got 5 minutes. Go give your thoughts. Greg's done a great job of really laying everything out.
Okay. So I'm like a huge,
You're good.
okay, huge crime, junkie. I listen to all the podcasts. I have a few lawyer people that I follow on YouTube. Shout out to Lori, and Emily D. Baker. Awesome people. So they kind of break down the trials. So I've watched Karen Reed from the first trial all the way to second trial, and then what just happened. And I was listening to you a little bit, Greg, of what you were saying, like the taillight and stuff like that. And I think from the first to the second, two completely different trials. Mm-hmm. And I honestly feel like and I've even listened to a few interviews from Karen Reed's defense team that they were listening to YouTube and people breaking down things and listening to like the outside of what people were saying, and how so many people didn't believe so much the conspiracy from the first trial. Mm-hmm. There was too many finger pointing to all these other people, even though I feel like it's super shady. Like you're talking about the taillight, how did these pieces end up days later? And they were like using a leaf blower to find it. And like, I don't know if you talked about the DNA they're collecting in the red Solo cups.
Yeah.
And like the Stop and Shop bags and like all this sketchy things. Yeah. That you don't use in police investigations. And so that was super shady. And then obviously the lead investigator and all the things that he said about Karen Reed. And then I guess like in a normal trial, because this was not normal, this was like completely crazy. And I feel like just as popular as like the OJ trial, you probably wouldn't get a lead investigator's private text messages. So, that was kind of like a plus. However, the fact that he was even saying that and engaging in that type of conversation with outsiders who had nothing to do with the case, and it was like the first day of the case, he was saying crazy things, was crazy. Yeah. First case, too much finger pointing, but I did not think that she was guilty. I never thought that they proved that she hit him with a car. Plus, his injuries did not match at all from many different sources of a car accident. And I mean, he had no injuries from like down here. He only had like thing on the back of his head, like scratch on his arm, no broken bones.
Two black eyes. How does that happen?
Exactly. Sketch. Now, everyone involved, the family, the McAlberts, they call them, because it's like they combine both their last names, the Alberts and the McCabe's, the whole family and everyone intertwined, super sketchy, super weird. But they never proved, I don't think, the defense didn't prove like, okay, this person did it, or Brian Higgins did it, the one that she was kind of flirting with, or whatever. Like they never really got enough evidence for me to feel like it was them. Definitely still felt like they left a bunch of reasonable doubt. And leading into the next trial, that's what they harped on, was the reasonable doubt over and over and over again. Not so much sorry, get out of breath. Not so much the conspiracy. And I've listened to a bunch of different jurors that have come out and have said like there was so much reasonable doubt. Like I can't convict on that at all. Like they didn't prove he got hit by a car, which is super sad in itself that this poor guy, we're never ever going to know what happened to him, probably ever. And that's super sad, but it all has to do, I think, with the horrible botched police investigation and the sketchy people involved. And, we
didn't even bring up the police garage, the lockup, we didn't, like how the fact that the vehicle, first off, the image is purposely flipped to the wrong side. So you have
inverted image. They were saying,
right.
Inverted. You have
a distorted perception of the vehicle, but conveniently, there are a whole bunch of people that don't belong in that police lockup to examine that vehicle, and they're in there for extended periods of time.
Like we find out Brian Higgins is in there from from the Kelly Dever, I think, or the last name Dever or whatever. That police officer in the second trial, she wasn't in the first. She said she saw him with, I think, one of the lead guys. in there for a while, and then she said for like ridiculous amount of time or something like that, and then recanted her statement and said she thought she saw it wrong, and it was conveniently in the time that they did not have like video footage of that, like that had been like deleted or wasn't there or whatever, like super sketchy stuff. And the fact that the FBI was even involved in the first place of just investigating the investigation is sketch. So yeah, insane. I'm very happy that she got what she got. I mean, there was 1,000% proof that she was totally drinking and driving. So you have to like kind of commit or convict her on that. But everything else, you know, I don't know if we'll ever know. And I just think that it's crazy the amount of people that like were watching this and invested. And I think a lot of it had to do with just like, again, the police corruption and like the craziness. And, you know, I think it has people a little bit on guard of just like our justice system. And that's why I try to listen to the different lawyers that are breaking down stuff. And they're like, listen, the system is in place for a reason. We have things for a reason. And it stinks that there's certain people that abuse that power or don't, you know, do things correctly. And it still needs work. But, you know, that's just kind of what this put the finger on, is the fact that like there's some still sketchy people out there.
And like we said at the top of the show, like, thank God that they didn't convict her, because there definitely wasn't enough evidence to do that. And that would have been a gross misconduct of our justice system.
Right. So and it's like you said, you know, justice prevailed because there was a ton of reasonable doubt there. You know, and whether that is truly because she didn't do it or whether it was just a completely botched investigation remains to be seen. I kind of had some feelings at first. When I first turned on the documentary, I had my initial feelings of on her, which was like, she's a little kooky, she's a little wacky. Who in their right mind, while they're in the middle of their defense trial, like films a documentary and has a documentary crew following them around? Like,
I know, that's insane.
Crazy. But look what it did. It got the whole world kind of hooked into it, you know? So, and at the end of the day, the justice system worked on this one. It unfortunately, like you said, like it didn't work for his family, you know, 'cause now they're never going to know, until something else comes up, like they're not going to know, you know, which sucks, because it sounds, for all intents and purposes, maybe this guy wasn't a very good boyfriend, but he seemed to be like a really good human being. So it's unfortunate, but
any parting thoughts, my dear? Anything else you want to say?
No. Well, just the fact, the documentary and the film crew, and like, but you made your point of like it got people's attention, and I think that her defense team is amazing. Like I've really dug into the background of all three of. Well, there's more than three, but like the main three. And like they are so meticulous and they know exactly what they're doing. And I think they did that for a reason. Because at first I'm like, oh my gosh, all of her things that she has said in these documentaries are going to come into trial and it looks bad. And the prosecution can clip it how they want. But it all like kind of made sense in the end of like they were making loud what needed to be made loud, of just the fact that, you know, this is some craziness going on and she shouldn't be convicted on something she didn't do and all this craziness. So like at first I was thinking the same way. I'm like, this lady is freaking crazy. Right. But now I see what they were doing.
Now she's famous.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and from like a legal standpoint too, is like the defense attorneys they were masterful. They were very, very good in the courtroom.
Yeah. It was very entertaining, to say the least. I mean, I watched most, if not every single day of the trial, or at least the recaps of everything. Like I was super invested and it was very interesting.
She didn't talk to me for like a month.
I needed to be in the zone, you know, needed to free my girl. But okay, that's all.
Thank you very much for coming on our program. I know you're a long-time listener, first-time caller. Thank you very much.
Okay. Goodbye.
Show that belly real quick. Show that belly.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my Lord.
Oh boy. All right. What do you think, Greg? Do we need to have a part 2 on this at some point?
I think we should definitely because we haven't even said what happened yet, but I think most of America knows that she was found, that there was a first trial, a retrial, and that she was just
So let's do that then. We'll leave it. We'll put a pin in it for here, and we promise to bring you the goods in part 2 of the Karen Reed Trudge Report deep dive.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Very good, Greg. You did a phenomenal job. Really and truly phenomenal job. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Shout out to our listeners. Please like, follow. There we go. Please like, follow, and share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. Email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send in your mailbag requests for topics, questions, and comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are still a recovery-based podcast, and we are here if anyone wants to talk about recovery or our criminal justice expertise or any experiences we have, or if you're struggling with some form of addiction. Thank you again to Janine and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night, God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. We'll see you next week.